Okay, hello everybody. So I hope all of you are doing well. And for the last three chapters regarding the ethic ecologies, I hope you have a clear understanding. Okay, so from your comments, I found that mostly all of you understand what I'm going to explain, and also I want you to understand. So later I will share with you the summary for these three chapters because I found that there is one student successful to summary the main point for chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3, right? Okay, so today's we will enter, after you have the ideas about the ecologies, what is happening surrounding us, then now we will move into the next part. So see, where is my background? I'm sitting like locating at the seaside, okay, beach side, because I recorded these lectures in my office, so I don't want you to see anything at the back, okay? So I show you some things that can give you maybe it's like more cheerful or happy thing. Okay. Also, maybe you will find out that the slide that you get from the online learning is actually different from what I sharing on the video, because actually I rechange all the slide for this semester. I have to redo it to make it more interesting. I hope it will help you and also show it to you that you feel this is more interesting and you have more, you're more excited to learn on that. Okay, so all right, so now we are going into the first elements in our environments, which is about the water pollutions. Okay, so it's about water. So when I mention about water pollutions, I'm sure every one of you will have, and you know what is water pollution, such as example, you will say, throw the rubbish into the river. So, and then those who stay in Selangor currently, those who stay in Selangor, those who in Kelang, KL, you are quite often facing the water pollution's impact. So those impacts will cause you have no water supply. Okay, so you will know how important the water is it. All right. So today's our chapters will be on water pollutions. So when we say about water pollutions, why this is become important? Because when we destroy our water, that means you are destroy your own life. Can we survive without any water? Okay, so can we survive without any water? Definitely not. Every day when you are wake up, you need water. When you before you sleep, you need to drink water. Even while you are eating, you need water. When I'm talking like this, also I need a lot of water. So when your water's being gone, so it means if we are destroying our water, that means we are destroy our own life. Okay, so right. So for these chapters, the course learning outcomes will be the ClO2 and then also ClO3, which is to help you explain. You will at least need to explain the important element in the environments. So that means what is the important elements in the environments in these chapters? It is the waters. What is important, then some things that you need to learn how to explain it. Okay, because you didn't have finals. Usually the finals questions were based on this. Okay, so I will ask you what is the important. You will need to identify this, okay? So secondly is you need to analyze the current issues that relates to the environment. So what is the current issue that relates with the waters or water pollution? So you need to know what is the current issues, okay? Right. So today's presentations outlines, we will have three main parts that we need to learn, okay? First, I need to tell you, before the water you can use, so before the pollution happens, what it means by a water, what is a water, okay? Some things that you need to understand first, so that is the hydrological cycles. You need to understand the cycle, the whole cycle. And I'm sure all of you have the basic idea of the cycles because you've been learning it through your science class since your primary to your secondaries until now. Okay, so this is something that you've been learned. But then I just want to recap you, and then there are some small part that while you are learning previously, maybe you didn't notice that. Okay, so second is the source of pollutions. When we say about the water pollutions, we not only have one types of water. Okay, generally, every one of us think, okay, our waters come from our tap water. So when you opens your tap, then that is the waters. But have you ever think, where is this water coming from? Okay, when you say it's coming from the stations, so from where the stations get the waters? When you said about like the cases in Selangor, the water stations been destroyed. So from where the water's coming from? So we have to know from the early startings, okay? The starting parts of the waters, okay? So the source of the pollutions or the source of the water, we actually have three types. So we have three types of water that we take the waters, okay? First is actually from our river. So we have the river water. Second is our lake. So we have lake water. As example, for northern regions, Perlis, we have Timataso. That is one of our place, the lake that we store our water. For Kedah, we have Tasik Pedu, Pedu Lake. And then for Terengganu, we have Kenyan Lake. So all those that very famous lake is actually our source. So what happened if here the source of the waters be polluted? So what will happen to us? Okay. So the last one is the seawater, which is marine. Seawater in Malaysia, we didn't implement it or we didn't use it, but that it happens to our closer country, Singapore. Singapore is an island. So even when the rain drops, the waters cannot store. So all the waters that they received your water is actually from Malaysia. We pump in the water for them. We send the waters for them. Beside that, they take the seawater and then they process and make it as a drinking waters. So the name of the waters is called as the new water. Okay, you can try to search. It called as a new water. And then finally, how are we going to control the pollutions? Okay, how are we going to help to avoid the pollutions? Sometimes you didn't thought that is the actions that you do is actually one of the pollutions method, is one of the things that you pollute to our source. But then, so from these chapters, you will understand how we've been pollute, and then how we're going to control. Is actually nature is something that very unique. It can have the pollutions and then it actually have the energies or the abilities to self-recover. So it's just an example, when you are sick, sometimes you didn't want to take the medicine, so you recover by yourself. So it's the same concept. So from this, I would tell you, so one is polluted, how it recovers. But if in a big quantity, that means all of this cannot be done. Okay? Right. So enters to the first, when we talk about hydrological cycles. So hydrological cycle is kitaran hydrology. I'm sure it's quite familiar for you guys. So the definition is, wait, let me get my pen. Where's my pen? Okay, so you can see from here. Where is my pen? Okay. All right. Okay. So we will see from here. You can see. Okay. So the hydrology cycles mean the continuous movement of water on, above, on, above, and below the surface of the earth. Okay, so this is our earth, the water that having on the surface. Okay, above the surface, which is above of us, such as example. Now on the surface from my figures, you can see, okay, the water in the river is on the surface. The water at the cloud is on the surface, above the surface, okay? Underground waters that you drink, in the drinking water, let's say, your mineral water, this is below the surface, which is where we call it as the underground water, okay? And then also you see, the waters will be transferred to the Earth atmosphere through the two processes. One is evapotranspirations and then one is transpirations. Okay, how our waters go up to the atmosphere? So you know, everybody knows when we have the sunlight, so the evaporations will be happens, right? So the water fell on the Earth's surface as the precipitations. Why we call it as a precipitations, not rainfall? Because precipitations means include snow. In Malaysia, yes, we didn't have snow. So most of you maybe doesn't alert that some things that falling down from the top of the skies to the surface of our earth is actually, we call it as the general names is precipitations. But then usually we only said rain. Rainfall, rain is dropping, okay? But then you have to remember, for those have four seasons countries, they actually have snow. So the snow also being calculated, because when the snow fall down, it will melt and become water, okay? So run over the ground into stream and river. So we call it as the surface runoff, or infiltrate into the ground to form the ground water. Okay. Right. So this is the complete image of the hydrological cycles. So from the first part, we will see precipitations. This is the first process, precipitations. When the rain drop, okay, and the snows, when the rain drop and the snow is falling down, so you will forms as the surface runoff. Okay, so when it comes as the surface runoff, it will flow to the river and to the sea. Okay, so this is the lake. When sun is coming out, we will have the evaporations. And then transpirations means those fogging. So, okay, last time if you are stay in Sinto, you are in UUM, every mornings when you wake up, it's a very blurry. So you have the fogging. When the sun come out, so the foggings were gone. So the fogging is actually those water molecules that having in our atmosphere. So the foggings is actually from the trees or from the air become going up, become the cloud. So we call it as a transpirations. Evaporations means it definitely will from the sea or from the river. It's from some things that on the surface. Okay. So after the evaporations, you go up, then you will have the condensations. Everything will combine. Bigger and bigger. The cloud will become bigger and bigger, heavy and heavier, and then it will drops again. So once it drops again, we will return to the cycle as the precipitations. Okay? Right. So once there's a surface runoff, and then we also have the infiltrations. Okay? Our land is those land that not concrete, so the water can penetrate. It's like a sponge, water can go in. So when the waters go in, it means it become the infiltrations. So what the waters will be going So the waters will be going down here, and then you can see it will becomes infiltrations. So it will forms the underground water for us. Okay, so here is our underground waters. And then this underground water, if there are some cracking here, it also will go back to our sea or river. Okay, right. So now you can see this is the explanations for each process. First, we have the precipitations. Rain is dropping, so precipitation is often refers to as rain, snow, and dew. Okay, and then we have the surface runoff. Once the water dropping, it will flow through our mountains. Okay, so it will flowing over the surface of the earth, and then water will flow into sea, river, or lake. Okay, at the same time, when it is dropping, hold on. Okay, sorry, continue balik. Okay, right. So evaporations means when you're having the suns, all the waters will go evaporates from the surface of the oceans, and then also from the rivers. Okay, and then for the transpirations, the processes involve the sweatings, and the sweat evaporates departures. So it's from the atmosphere or from the pore of the leaf. Okay, usually is the drops of on the leaf, and then finally is the condensations, where all the small drop that been evaporates, they collect all together, right? I'm sure it's quite simple that you can understand. Okay, okay. So now we entering. When you understand the concept, when you understand the hydrological cycles, how it happens, now we're moving forward. So when we talk about water pollutions, how we identify this is pollutions, and how we identify this is um what will cause the pollutions. Okay, so we have 8 principal forms actually. So we have 8 items that we call it as the pollutions cause, that can cause the pollutions, can be the agents for the pollution. The first thing is actually the disease that causing agents. So you will see here, when we talk about the disease causing agents, it means that some things that you see. So we have the bacteria, virus, protozoa, and parasite, the worms, enters the water from our domestic sewage, all and human and animal waste. Second is the oxygen demanding waste. So the organic waste which can be decomposed by the bacteria that using oxygens. So when the large populations of the bacteria support this waste, can deplete the water, dissolve oxygens. Okay, I will give you 2 examples for this, okay? So I will give you one by one, the examples one by one, so that you can have the ideas and understand it, okay? So when we say about disease-causing agents, so it have to be something that virus or bacteria. So if you're having like the pesticide of worms, so where it's come from? It's actually when it's mentioned from the domestic sewage or human waste, so it's coming from our toilets. So just imagine if the old style, now currently all your toilet, it should be actually having, will go to IWKs in that water. But then for last time, when you enter the toilets, your toilet might be attached on the river. So when you doing your business, it will directly go to the river. So this kind of waste, those things, or let's say you have a baby, so you let the baby wear the pampers. So the pampers you didn't throw properly, but then you throw into a river. So all the waste of the baby will also get into the rivers. So here is the place. So when you just imagine, if those waste been go into the river, and then you drink the waters from the river, you take the water from the rivers, and what will happen to you? Okay. So secondly is the oxygen demands, where we have the bacteria or small organic waste. We call it as a micron. So every all of our waters, we will have the microns of planktons. So if they will grow, but there's one, if their populations, they grow too much. So what will happen? They still need the oxygens to survive. So these oxygens will become low in the water. So in the water itself, they have the oxygens that we call it as a dissolved oxygens. So when these oxygens become low, all the fish will die because fish also needs oxygens. So when the fish die, so our waters is become like polluted, because if you're having in a big amount, so it will be, the waters will become not functioning anymore. When we talk about RO waters, it's actually you reverse the oxygens for the water. So it's the same concept. If you're having too much of plankton, plankton is the food for the fish. But then when you have too much of plankton, but then low fish, so the oxygens will be take over by the plankton. So when the oxygens take over by the planktons, so it will be start to reduce the oxygen's level. So the fish will die. Okay, even ourselves, when we would like to take the water, it will become not good and then smelly. Okay, so third one is the water soluble in organic chemicals. When we say about chemical, it's something like acid, all the toxic metals, lead, mercury. If this thing, can we eat this thing? We cannot eat. As a human, we cannot eat. So if this been put inside our river, so what will happen? Our water cannot be drinks, and then those aquatic life, our fish, the seaweed, anything inside the water also will die. Okay. Fourth is the inorganic plant nutrients. So we have the nitrates and phosphate. It's actually come from our our fertilizer, or even the pesticide killer. Okay. So this also will depleting our dissolved oxygens. Number 5 is organic chemicals, oil, gasoline, plastic, pesticide, detergents are threatens the human and aquatic life. Sediment and suspended metals. So suspended particulate metals reduce the ability of some organisms to find food, reduce the photosynthesis by the aquatic plants. Okay, inside the rivers, we still have plant. They will still produce and doing their photosynthesis. However, if the water is very dirty, full of particles, small particles, so when the sunlight enter, it will be reflect back. It cannot go through. So photosynthesis cannot be done. So when there is no photosynthesis, so it will full with carbon dioxide. So you didn't have any oxygens. Okay. And then it's just like Earth. During the haze time, can you see some things from far? No. So when your visibility has been disturbed, how are you going to find for the food? Okay. So the radioactive substance, all of us know radioactive is something that definitely won't be good. So even it's the same. So these cases are also one of the example that you can relate is you relate back with the Japan earthquake in 2011. So that times there are nuclear plant that been burning. So everybody's are worried that will our Pacific oceans be polluted by the nuclear, because all the water that we clean up the nuclear being released to our oceans. Okay, so this is something that we need to know. Finally is the heat. Do you like a hot weathers? For sure you don't like. So you will turn on your aircon to let yourself having a comfort times. It is the same for those animals, any living organism in the waters. They also don't like a hot water. You put a fish inside the hot water. Can they survive or they will die? So when you're cooking, you need a hot, right? So if the water in the river become very hot, do you think they can survive? No. So the excessive input of the water that is heated will resulting in increase the temperatures, and then it will make it becomes the low dissolved oxygens, right? Okay. Oh, I forgot to clear it. Okay. So at least you have the basic ideas. When we said some things, you are doing pollution, you are polluting our rivers, you are polluting our source, then you know which kind of pollution is being created. Okay. So now we look into that one is general. Now we look into specific. First, we look into the surface water where we call for the river. So the pollutions of the river. Pollution of the river, there are two types. So one we separate into point source, and the second one is the non-point source. When you see about point source, point, so you can point where is it. You can pick where is it. So it means that when we say about point source, it's something that you can identify, you can detect. It's coming directly from a specific areas. So from this figure, you can see this is point source. This is point source that you can see, you know where it come from. But then when we come to the second, is the non-point source is a widely spread source of pollutions that you can't be tied to a specific point. The where it's come from is very hard for us to identify. So such as example, when you have a city street, you are walking on the street. So usually on our street, there are some dust, leaf. So all of this, when we're having some wind, it will flow. So if the river is beside, it will fall on the river. It will actually become the sediment. Okay, so this one will be the sediments. Okay, so this is a non-point source. That means when we talk about non-point source, is some things that you don't know where I can find or where it come from, where the pollutions come from. So this is some things that we say as non-point source. So from this figure, you can see the non-point source that we say is there are croplands, rural homes, city street, suburban developments. Or when someday you have a piece of land, you said, okay, I want to do something, I want to do some development. So I cut all the tree first. Okay, so when you cut all the tree, what happens to the land? It become bald. There is no tree. So when there is raining, what will happen? The soil on the lands will be carried along by the rainwaters to the rivers. Okay, so this is some things that you can't identify, you can't really know where it's come from compared to the wastewater treatment plants, because you have the piping and usually the color will change there. And then like this is the factories, so you know where is it. Okay, right. So there are three types of the pollutions. When we have the point and non-point source, this is the two main categories. So from these two main categories, there are three types of the pollutions. The first one is the runoff pollutions. We call it as the surface runoff. So it's usually occur for the street. So the process of the transfer contaminants on the surface of the municipality to other place due to the rain. Okay, so when raining, you see there are some things, the water will flow along. So it will go through along until the rivers. Okay, second example, if you still remember, I think maybe only those new students maybe have no ideas where is the rivers. Okay, so STML is actually located at DKG6. Beside DKG6, we have one river that separates between DKG6 and also Inasis Mas. Okay, so that river, usually when there is no raining, you will see the water is quite clear. But then when there is raining season, the water become like tea ice. Okay, milk tea, like the tea life boba milk tea. Okay, why this happened? Because the river is actually bring the water from the top of the mountains, which is Kachi. On near to Kachi, in Nasis Kachi, we actually have the sand mining. So they have to clean the sand from the mountains that they take. So all the waters will be coming through. And then also is actually bring the soil from the mountains along of it and then coming to the river. So that's why the color of the rivers become like brown colors. Okay, so contaminants is actually, we can say it as like nature's human activity or agriculture. It's usually include the fertilizer, our pesticide. So you might be curious how the fertilizer will impact, because you put the fertilizer in the paddy fields. Okay, I take the example as paddy field. Paddy fields, usually next to paddy fields will be the river or stream. Okay, so when you go and spray the pesticide, the fertilizer, if there are wind, when you spray something, will it bring through? So it will fly and drop it on the river. Okay, so the final one is actually the water discharging from industrial plant or some kind of wastewater treatment plants. Okay, so this is something that from the industry. You might always listen to the news that sometimes some factories that doing their industrial works, and then they didn't send the water to the wastewater treatment plants, but then they discharge directly. The most easier to be traced why the color that the waters go out will usually is a different color compared to our river color. Rivers, a healthy rivers, the color would be a blue one or light green. But then let's say, as example, we have a dye. You have a dye factories. Your, today you dye your clothes is a red color, so the water will be red. Tomorrow is a blue. So this is something that the pollutions of the surface water. Okay. Just now you check it. Do we have the surface runoff pollution? So you might be thinking, what is surface runoff pollutions? Although I mentioned to you, is just like the streak, all those on the surface thing. Okay, now we're having like more details one. So what is the runoff pollutions? So first is the land use activities. When you are doing your housing, your shops, your company, you would like to do the renovations, you would like to build out something, so you have to clear all the trees. When you clear all the trees, so it will become like we have a surface runoff. So when the tree, there is no tree, all the rainwaters drop on the mountains or on the surface, it will go through with the water, it will flow along. Jalan sekali. Okay, sampai until the river. Second is the air pollutions. Okay, have you ever heard about acid rain? Okay, so this is from the air pollutions. Okay, you are burning, so the smoke is going up. And then when there is raining, the smoke is actually something that you can see. So means it's a small particles. So when it's going up, a small particle, when there is raining, the rain will bring it back to the surface. Okay, so the detail we will discuss in the next few chapters when we talk about it in the air pollution chapters. Okay, so you will see that the descriptions for air pollution is usually we said it occur in the area of industry, municipal constructions, and open burnings. So the particle floating in the atmosphere brought down by the rainwater or the gravity. Okay, so on the road surface, sometimes we have the oil spill, tire rubber particle, or corrosions. Okay, sometimes you might, when you are driving, you will see the colors on the road will be having like some oily. So it might be have after the accidents. So if nobody go to clean it, the rain's coming, where will this go? It will go to the small stream, longkang. Longkang akan ke mana? Ke sungai. And then ke laut. So it will go to the small stream beside, to our drainage system, and then to our rivers, and then to our sea. Okay. So the final ones will be the farm and the land surface conditions. So the development area is an area that is not impervious. So this result in an increase in the amount of runoff and also pollutions without the cause. Okay, I will show you the photo for this farm and land surface condition. Okay, this is the example. We cut all our trees. Okay, so when rain coming, what will happen to this? So when rain is dropping down, what will happen? It will flow through. So you will see, this is the mark. So the waters will go through. And then it will go to, this is the road, coming to the road. And then at the end, it will go to the river, right? Okay. So you will see, this is the river. This is the color. So do you think this is one of the pollutions? So water pollution, it doesn't mean when you throw your rubbish inside the river only is pollutions. It's actually even through our regular activities that we didn't notice is also actually one of the pollutions we are creating. Okay, so how we control these surface water pollutions from the non-point source? So first we have to reduce the fertilizer, and then we have to develop the non-harmful pesticide or herbicide. So that's why now we have everything we are talking about organics. So apply the pesticide only when needed, and then reduce the use of the inorganic fertilizer. We try to promote to use something that is organic. So something that organic, it can be biodegradable, so it won't harm to our environments. Okay, plant the permanent vegetation as the buffer zone. So we put some plantations. So when the rainwater bring it down, at least there is some things that can block. So like the filter. If you go along the highway, you will see usually we have a lot of the buffer zone. Okay, with the big rocks, all these things to hold all these particles or sediments. Okay, and then reforestations of the log forest. Those trees that you've been cut, we have to replant. Okay, so that it won't be bought. Tak jadi botak. Okay, road or highway cleaning practice. So sometimes you will see the trucks like you will see the trucks with a broom under them. So go and sweeping all these things and then vacuum it. Okay, so the proper waste disposal, so the solid waste management. So you will see it's actually relate the whole. It's not only from one part. Okay, right. So next is the underground water. Okay, you always drink this water when you are in UUM. But then now you are home, you will drink those tap water. But then you always drink this water. Have you ever think this also will get polluted if you didn't take care? Okay, if this thing become polluted, it even worse. Okay, so some bacteria and most suspended solid pollutants are removed and the contaminants surface water seep through the soil. But that's when we talk about groundwaters, underground waters. You should have one idea that the mineral waters or the underground water is actually better than our surface water. Why? Because okay, I'm not sure have you ever tried. I can't do it now. Okay, so I will give you the videos you can see. So when you have a very colorful water, you pour through the sand, it actually will become clean. So this is the nature's filter. So this is actually happens as the underground water. So those the waters that been infiltrated is actually through a filtrations. So these filtrations is actually been help us to clean our waters. So that's why it said when it seep through the soil. So the natural process of the purifications become overloaded by the large volume of waste. But then when you have a lot of pollutions, how are you going to solve? Okay, so those the nature have the self-cleaning process, but then it's not in a big amount, all right? So if the contaminants reach the groundwater supplies, they are usually not effectively dilute or dispersed because the movement in the aquifer is slow and not turbulent. So it takes hundreds or thousands of years for the contaminated groundwater to clean itself. It's very slow, degradable, and non-degradable. So there are two major sources of the groundwater contamination. So there are two types two things that will cause our groundwater become polluted. Okay, so first is the leak of hazardous organic chemicals from the underground storage tank. This is actually from the landfill. Those rubbish that we throw will, once the lorry come and pick up, it will send to the landfill. So if our landfill didn't have a good management, just imagine, okay, you have batteries will have a leakage, so those things will go into the water, our underground waters. Okay, first thing. Second, when you buy a rice and then you didn't finish it, you left it there for 2 days. How it smell? Busuk tak? Will it smell it bad? Yes. So this thing, just imagine, if you didn't finish and then you throw to the rubbish dustbin, so they bring it to the landfill. This thing, after some days, it will become like wet and liquid. So these liquids will infiltrate to our underground. So if we didn't well manage our solid waste management, so these will become some things that go to our groundwater. And then when we say about hazardous waste, it's just like, okay, when you go to clinic and take medicines, if you didn't finish your medicine, have you ever returned back or go to hospital and dispose it in the box? No, nobody's, right? You will just throw into the dustbin. So when you throw into the dustbin, this medicine, is it toxic or not? When you take in small amount, yes, it's good for our health. But when you go into a big numbers, it will become a toxic. So this will melt when you have rainfall. So what will happen? It still will infiltrate to our underground waters. Okay. So next is the toxic heavy metals compound from landfills, abandoned dumps, or industrial waste storage lagoons. Okay. So, okay, I would like to tell you, if you remember that, okay, when we come back to this slide, it said that it takes thousands of years for the underground water to clean itself. And then because it cannot be diluted or dispersed. Okay, so now I'm showing you what is the difference when we say about the river and the lake management, okay? These are some things that similar, okay? So the groundwater is actually also, as you still we have the river and then we have our lake, right? So the lake is actually similar concept like our groundwater. Okay, so when you see about here, the comparison is like the river pollutions, it will affect on our DO. So our dissolved oxygens will become low. So this will pose a threat to our fish and also others aquatic life. So the oxidations of the organic compound is carried out by the microorganism. So when the oxygen is low, so the fish cannot survive. But you need to remember one thing. River, when you drop something here, it will keep moving. Okay, let's say you drop a dye color, okay? You drop a dye here, and then the rivers will move. So what will happen? It will become, the colors will become lighter and lighter and lighter because you have a big quantity and then it keep moving. But then let's say, if you're having a bottles, you drop a dye inside, it will only pollute the whole bottles and then it won't go anywhere. So this is the difference between the lake pollutions or underground water pollutions and the river pollutions. So you see, for the lake pollution is different from the river or stream pollutions and to physical characteristic of the water mass. Water in stream and river are constantly moving. So thus is providing a flushing actions for the incoming pollutants. However, in lakes or underground waters, the water does not move very much. So it will stay there relative very long periods. So the discharge, so therefore the water quality will be impacted. Okay, right. So what are the difference between the river pollution and the lake pollution is, one is keep moving. So it can be dilute. Okay. Second one, for the lake pollutions, once it enter, it will be stay there for long times. It won't go anywhere. Okay, so the next, there are two figures that will help you to understand more. Okay, example here. This is the river pollutions. Okay, so you're having a high dissolved oxygens now because there are no pollutions happens. So no pollutions, good dissolved oxygens. Okay, and then suddenly somebody throw something inside. So the pollutions happens here. And then you will see the oxygens will going down. But then after some times, it will recover back to the normal. Unless you have pollutions here, you have pollutions here, you have pollutions here, you have pollutions here. Then it will be all the times very low. Okay, so this is the difference. The rivers will be keep moving, keep going, so it won't have too much of effect if the pollution is not in a big scale. But then, as I said, if you have pollutions here, you have pollutions here, you have pollutions here, do it have time to clean up? No. So it will become a polluted river, right? However, compared to the lake, you will see it's a totally different thing because the lake, once the water is entered, it no place to go out. So it will stay here. So you will see, if this is the healthy system, we only need a minimum nutrients input. But, okay, so the nutrient is actually the food for the algae or even the planktons. Okay, so they need the nutrients to survive, to eat. And then the fish will eat the planktons. Then we eat the fish. Okay, all right. So the oxygen also will be enough if it's not much. Okay, but you see, this is on the another side. You see, this one is not the good example one. So you have excessive, too much of nutrients. Just like our body, I am sure now everybody's are taking vitamin C, but then actually vitamin C for one day, you only need 1000 milligrams, okay? Then only you can digest. If one day you think, oh, I feel I'm weak, I need a lot of vitamins, so I eat a lot, then you become overdose. It's actually not good. So it's the same. The water need the nutrients to act as a food for the plankton or small microorganism. But then if you have too much of nutrients, what will happen? They will eat too much. So when they eat too much, they will grow very fast. So the algae will become bloom. Okay? And then when you have too much of organism inside, the oxygen level will become low. So can the fish still survive? No. And then longer times, when there are no oxygen, it's a lake. So there is nothing to help to give extra oxygen. Okay? So when the population is too much, oxygen's no more. So even itself, the plankton itself and also algae will be die. So when it dies, it will settle down. It will become settle down, all these things. So it becomes, we call it as the eutrophications. Okay. So we will see next for the eutrophications. Okay. So nutrient as an algae growth requirements. The water quality management of the lake is usually accomplished by reducing the input of the nutrients such as phosphorus. So where the phosphorus come is actually come from our fertilizer. So there are three types of nutrients that needed. So first is carbon, second nitrogen, third is the phosphorus. Okay, algae can obtain the carbons from carbon dioxide that dissolve in the waters. The largest source of the carbon dioxide is from our atmosphere. So the nitrogen is usually in the form of nitrates and come from the external source by the way of inflowing the stream. Phosphorus in the lake originated from the external source is taken up by the algae in the inorganic form. Okay, so Eutrophication is actually one of the things that when you see a lake become green in colors. So I'm sure all of you have the ideas. There is a lake with fully green. So that one is full. We usually is full of algae. So because on the surface you will see like the green plants, small plants. So that one is actually we call it as a eutrophications. Okay. So eutrophication is some things that increase in the rate of the incoming nutrients and sediments. It is a natural process but can be accelerated by the human activities and can be thought as an inverted or continual aging process of a lake. Okay. A lake means some things that you only have input, there is no output. So all the waste cannot be go out. Once you keep putting in things, it will year by year is become swallow and swallow, cetek dan cetek. So lama kelamaan tasik itu akan mati. So the lake will become aging, just like us. We also will become aging when we are old. So aging and aging. So when aging and aging, the capacity of the lakes will become smaller and smaller and smaller, and then finally we say it as a die. So that is a complete process of a eutrophication. Because from these photos, this figure, you will see. So this is some things that happen. So when the nitrogens and phosphorus enter, so this nutrient will cause increase in the plankton, phytoplankton. So the phytoplanktons will grow in the saggy grass. So this will give the oxygens to the algae. And then the algae will start to bloom and then it will die. So when it dies, it will be decay, become the sediments, right? So these are the four stages. There are four stages in the eutrophication process. So these are the four stages that you can see. From here, I think it will be more easier for you. So at the first stage, we call it oligotrophic. So you have a very deep and clean and cool, and the nutrients provide with a very little aquatic life. So usually you still can see through, there are sand and rock at the bottoms. When you come to second stage, the nutrient and sediment become to accumulate. So it increase the population of aquatic life and begin to appear. So sometimes here you will start to see there are small tree or small plantations. Next, during the third stage, the nutrients become more. The nutrients become a lot of nutrients, so it can grow very fast. So the relatives become smaller. And then when you have a lot of people in one room, the temperatures will increase because the carbon dioxide is going up more. Okay, so more with much plants grow and other aquatic organisms. So the algae bloom will also frequently occur. So the finalist one is like, so future aging or eutrophications leads to the senescence stage and the oldest stage of the lake. So it become very shallow, overgrown with emergence rooted plant life. So usually when this is happens, so we have to close the lake and then we have to do a digging and cleaning it out, right? Okay, so this is the major cause of the eutrophications, because when you know from the previous one, eutrophications is actually because of the nutrients. So where these nutrients coming from? So they are coming from three places. First is our agriculture activities. Second is our sewage effluents. And then the third one is our urban runoff. So you can see from the figures, urban runoff is relative of our life, industrial, all those development projects. So, and then agricultures, our plantations, and then finally is the sewage from our toilets. So you can see the erosions from the croplands, leaching of fertilizer, runoff from the animal waste, okay, discharge from sewage treatment plant, use of detergents, seepage from the septic system. So when you go to hotels, you might be thinking, why they always say, okay, reuse your towels, help us to save the environments. Why detergents? Why reuse the towel help us to save our environments? Because when you reuse it, that means they need to wash less. So when they wash less, the detergents that been used will be less. So it means that the sewage effluents will be reduced. Okay. So the last one will be the urban runoff. So it's the erosions from the development projects, leachings from the fertilizers to our lawns, Our tree is along our street. Okay, so that one is not under agriculture. So the tree along our street, still have to put fertilizers to that. If not, how it grow? So this is some things. And then the runoff from the pet droppings. Okay, so how we control this eutrophication? So first we have the silt fence. We would like to avoid some things to go out, to avoid the sediments go into the rivers or into the lakes. So we have to put the fencings so to protect, so it will hold up stuck here. And then you see at the background, this is silt traps. So for the usually at the development site, you will have these silt traps. So the water's coming up and then it will store it here. Then only we release. So see, how we control is first we need to efficiency our fertilizer, soil erosions control, sediment trap or silt traps, control the lakeside developments, surface water diversions, and then also our tertiaries treatments plan. Okay. So now we have our river, we have our lake. Now we're going into sea, our marines. So the sea, we get our seafood from our sea. So we have to protect our sea, our marines. So what are the pollutants they're having in the marine environments other than plastic? All of us only caring about plastic. We always say we have to protect our oceans. So we reduce our plastic waste. But then beside plastic, there are still a lot of the pollutants. Okay, oil and grease, suspended particle, Enteria coli, E. coli, mercury, copper, cadmium, arsenic, chromiums, and leads. Okay, oil and grease coming from where? You will see it in the next. So the humans' activities. So first, as all of you know, disposal of solid waste. We throw everything inside. Okay, so direct dumping into the sea, dumping into the rivers, or the garbage dumping from the ship. When you go on cruise, wow, I'm so happy, Titanic. And then after you eating something, I'm so lazy to look for the dustbin, I just throw it inside the sea. The garbage may be small, the sea is so big, so nothing matters, right? Okay. No, this is wrong. Okay. So second, the marines transport of oil and hazardous waste. Okay. So oil spill, dislodge of tankers. The crude oils amounting 3 million barrels are transported actually every day. So okay, when we're having a ship, kereta pun akan ada leaking kan. So it's the same concept. When you're driving a car, sometimes you might have the oil leak. So it's same as the ship. Also, sometimes you might read the news. There are accidents with the ship. So the leaking. So all of this is actually some things, okay? So the disposal of the contaminants, sediments, or industrial waste. So we throw everything in our sea, okay? The sludge dumping, right? Developments of the coastal area. So when you would like to do developments at the coastal area, you would like to build house, will you still making some contributions? Because when you're cleaning up the trees, like the mangrove tree or the coconut trees, it's actually those soils will going to the sea. So it's just like even some beach are getting smaller and smaller. Where the sand go? Going back to the sea. Okay, so the land reclamations, coastal industrial project or harbors constructions, when you would like to build jetty. Okay, and then also, okay, second bridge, you would like to bridge the Penang second bridge. So it's actually also one of the marine pollutions because you have to bore. The piling system that using is a borehole type. So when you bore where you throw the soil, you actually dispose back to the marine, to our sea. Then only you put it in. So this is some things that happens. Okay, so we are the ones that actually contribute soil erosions, river siltations, destructions of the marine habitats. So the last one is the dams, sea gates, and irrigations canals. Okay, right. So the factors that affecting the impact of the oil spill. So oil spill is actually quite common, happens as long as there is a boat transporting belongs. So the factors that affect is actually the types of oil, because different type of oil you have different density. So the different densities will provide a different impact. Some having a very thick one. So when you're having an oil spill on the sea, can the sunlight go through? Cannot. Can the oxygens get in? No, because oil having a lighter density, so it will go on up. So it will block everything. So how they going to survive? Cannot. Second is the wind conditions. Since the oil is on the top of the water, so when there are winds, it will be helped to spread, going more fast. Okay. Finally is the water conditions. If the water is cold, you just pour some oil in a cold water, it will clog together. But then if you pour the oil in a hot water, it will dilute. Okay. Okay. So finally, how are we going to help the environments? It's actually there are one of the methods. It's actually been implemented and used as for us not only to protect our seaside, but then also to help us to recover our water pollutions or even our ecology life, where we call it as the wetland, tanah basah. Okay, so you always will see this photo when you're walking somewhere else, like in a rural area or in urban area. So what is wetland? It's actually a transition zone between the terrestrial and aquatic environment. So it's something that between us and also our environments. So the criteria is the area must be permanently or seasonally inundated. It has to be always full of water, and then the area must support hydroponics vegetations. So you will put hydroponic on the tops. The soil in the area must be waterlogged for a sufficient time to become anaerobic. Tanah mesti tanah liat, that you can capture the water. It needs to be the soil that can capture the water, because we need the waters. Okay, because the plants, that hydroponics plants, can help us to clean up our waters. Okay, so this is the classifications of our wetlands. So we have three types. First is the freshwater, second is seawater, and then the last one is the man-made wetlands. Okay, so the seawaters one, we have a river. We can use a river. So you can see, okay, first A. So this is the river, by the riverside. So we didn't do any developments, we just let it grow up. Okay, second is the seawater, bakau. So you will have a lots of mangrove tree. The last one is the man-made one. So the C one. C is the man-made. You can see through from these three figures, A, B, C. C1, the man-made one, is actually, we have the most biggest wetland in Malaysia. It's actually our Putrajaya. All those lakes that you see in Putrajaya is actually our wetland. That's why you have a park there, you have a lot of birds there. Okay, so Putrajaya is actually one of our biggest wetland that we have in Malaysia, and then that one is actually a man-made one. All those lakes that you see near to the Putrajaya is actually not originals having water there. They've been diverse from the rivers, the water. So the designers divert is and guide the water go inside the Putrajaya. Okay. So this is the natural, what is the natural functions of wetland? Why we need to have wetlands is actually first for the climatic effects. It will help us to balance our carbon dioxide, because you have a lot of plants, you have a lot of trees, so you have a green view, so you have more oxygen, help us to reduce our carbon dioxide. And then the rainfall and humidity effect, so you have more evaporations and evapotranspirations, right? So biodiversity functions, it will attract, if a successful wetland, it will attract a lots of birds or other ecologies to come and stay there. So the ecosystem diversity, link between the terrestrial and aquatic ecosystem, and then high species and populations diversities. So third one is habitat functions. The wildlife habitats is actually will you by develops a wetland is actually you provide a place to for the wildlife to stay. So you create some place for them. Some they need water, some they need some trees, but then when we do developments, we're actually taking everything from them. So by doing wetlands, we are providing back to them. So the fourth one is hydrological and hydraulic functions. Wetland is actually a pond. So when you're having a heavy rainfall, it will help you to hold the waters. It also helps us to reduce flooding. Okay, storm protections, coastal erosions, catchment dynamic, and then water holding capacity. And those that successful we can use at water supply. Example, the Putrajaya's water is actually using those from the lake as the water supply. Okay, finally is the water quality functions. It helps us to filter all the particulates and then also treat the nutrients, and then these nutrients is actually won't become algae because the trees or the others will take it as the food for them. So, okay, biodegradations for the toxic compound, heavy metal stripping, and then wastewater treatment and water quality can be improved. Right. Okay. So that's all for this topic. I'm having a quick summaries for you guys. Okay. Um, So when we say about water pollutions, there are three things. When we talk about hydrological cycle first, okay. So we have our surface water, which is river, and then we have our underground water, which is our, so the waters that you cannot see that located underground, that is our underground waters. And then for our surface waters, we have two types of water that we take. First is from the river, second is from the lake. So and then so after these two, but then we have to protect these two. The difference between these two is actually the river pollutions, it can help, it can clean up by itself, although or except you throw too much of rubbish or you create too much of pollutions. But then for lake, it didn't have the ability to having a self-cleaning. So the lake one, we actually need to having like a more sustainable system. We have to be more careful because it will die. The lake itself will die. So the difference between for the surface pollutions, the difference between the rivers pollution and the lake pollution is the river pollutions can clean by itself, the lake pollutions cannot. So the lake pollutions that you can see is actually through the eutrophications. We always like the photos that we having very green things, but then this is not good for the lake itself, right? So the finally how we're going to control is actually we can change the lake into a wetland system, into a successful system, a wetland system, the sustainable system. So at the same time, you also provide a new place or new ecosystem to all the biodiversity. So do you like this photo that I'm giving you now? So you can see from the sea. So this, and then the last one is the sea pollutions. If you still would like to enjoy this kind of view, this kind of sea and beach, then I would only advise you guys, before you throw or before you do anything, please think, because everything that we do is always come back to us. So if you would like still would like to enjoy this nice view, then we have to think how we're going to protect our water resources, because water is something that having the most related to our life, right? Okay. So thank you for all of you. So if you have any questions, you can ask me through the WhatsApp group or anything, or you can ask through the Google Classroom. All right. I hope this is clear for you. You can actually compare the slide that currently already have on in the online learning and also the new slide, because I'm giving you two. Why? Because this one is more to a summarized one, that one is more to longer, having more photo. This one is more to summarize, because online classes I can't give you too much of details. I only can provide more to a summary style, right? Okay, so thank you all of you. We'll see you guys again next week. Enjoy your online lectures. Bye.